I love Bridgerton. Hello, welcome back. Today we're gonna do a video which I am so excited for because I am obsessed, and I mean obsessed. It's ridiculous how obsessed I am. My god, I can't even take myself seriously. We're gonna try and get some order into this video. I apologize if it's not the greatest, but honestly, I tried really hard. I made notes, like 2-page worth of notes for this video, so I really hope it turns out well. If it doesn't, then I've wasted a few days, because this took me a few days. And that's just making the notes alone. We're not even talking about reading the book. And let's just get into this actually first. This is going to be my review of Bridgerton. I need to come up with a better title. Essentially, my friend Kira and I decided to read Bridgerton, book 1, The Duke and I. And I just carried on. Is that even the beginning? I don't know. So basically, everybody watched the TV show Bridgerton. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. I would highly recommend it. It's taken everywhere by storm. It's just everywhere. And I was one of the last people to watch it. I was like, yeah, don't really know what it's about, you know, but it's on Netflix. I'm just going to continue to watch MasterChef instead, you know, it's that kind of thing. And then I decided, no, you know what, I'm bored. Let's watch it. And I watched it all in one afternoon. I just blitzed through it. And then I found out there were books. My friend Kira informed me that there is 9 books. 9? How have I read them all? I've already forgotten. Yeah, there's 9 books. There's 8 books centering on each of the siblings, and then there's a book that's like a collection of epilogues, but we'll get into that. Kira bought all the books, and I was like, no, I don't think so. And then I suddenly changed my mind. I bought all of them on Kindle. I would recommend, actually, if you're unsure, because they're only like 99p to £1.50 when I got them, so it's quite a good deal. So we both read the first one, and then as I said, I think, as I've already said, I just then continued, and we started Monday afternoon, and by Sunday I'd finished them. So I'm going to take you through my thoughts, comparison with the TV show, controversy, spoilers and stuff. Quick things before we start. The spoiler section will be at the end. I will warn you before I get into spoilers, but I am going to try and cover quite a lot without the spoilers, if that makes sense. So the spoilers will be at the end, but I will warn you. And also, because of the content, if you haven't seen Bridgerton or read Bridgerton, I will be talking about male rape. So if that is something that's triggering for you, I will leave a timestamp on the screen for when I talk about it, and I will also give a trigger warning just before I'm about to talk about it as well. My initial thoughts going into it, I'm not going to enjoy it. It's just going to be cheesy. It's going to be stupid. Bearing in mind my reading taste, I like to think I read quite an eclectic taste of books. However, I don't really read a lot of plain romance. It's just not my kind of thing. I mean, we're going to ignore the fact that I did a 24-hour romance readathon a few weeks ago and absolutely was living my best life. But before this, I didn't really read a lot of romance. It wasn't really a thing. I found them all to be super cheesy and just stupid, and it was it just wasn't for me, honestly. It wasn't really my thing. Oh, now I'm bloody converted, aren't I? So shot myself in the foot right there, didn't I? And I decided to read it because Kira was reading the first one, and I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna read it. I'll shake things up a bit, try some different things. Why not? 2021 so far has been such an amazing reading year for me, and I think what's helped that is shaking things up. So if you're stuck in a rut, just try and shake things up. I also did think it was going to be a slog. which was why when I started reading the first one, I think I decided in my mind that I was just going to read them all, because I bought them, I spent my money on them, so I was going to just sit and read them. I didn't think I would get through them as quickly as I did, and nor did I plan to read them all in 1 week. If I had planned, then I probably would have actually recorded it, but I didn't. Whoops. So they're my general thoughts going in. Now on to the general series premise kind of thing. So it follows the Bridgerton family in the early 1800s, the Regency period of England. The Regency period is when George III can't actually lead the country because he is mad, he's mentally incapable, so his son takes over as the regent prince, and that's why it's the Regency period. Although there is quite a bit of overlap with the dates, so it's not all set in the Regency period, but it's around that time. So each of the characters have their own story, they each have their own book. You have all the siblings and they are named in alphabetical order. So the firstborn, his name starts with an A, the secondborn, their name starts with a B, third C, fourth D, and it goes like that. The books do generally follow in that order, apart from the first one, which is Daphne's first book, which is on the fourth child, but then it goes A, B, C, and then E, but then Gregory and Hyacinth, they switch the other way around at the end, if that makes sense. They're all these characters, the siblings are all very different, they all have their own ideas of what they want in life. Obviously they are all to get married, there are romance books, I'm not spoiling anything by that. You should recognise that they are all gonna get married. It's romance, you know. And then so each book follows their own individual journey into what gets them married. So they're meeting the person that they love, or meeting the person they then fall in love, and it kind of goes like that. This is where I thought it's gonna get boring and repetitive, because it's just gonna be each couple, each person just finding a person and being like, oh, I love you, and then it's gonna be boring. No, oh my god, I'll get onto that, but oh my god, no. Also a common theme in the books, in the earlier books rather, is you get this kind of overarching omnipresent, is that the right word? Omnipresent? Omnipresent voice that is Lady Whistledown. She's like a columnist in, like, she does Lady Whistledown society papers, and essentially old-fashioned gossip girl. That's the best thing that I could probably describe it as. You don't know who Lady Whistledown is. You find out about halfway through the book series, and then from then on you don't get any more Lady Whistledown, which is a bit of a shame, because I did love Lady Whistledown papers. I thought they were really good additions to the beginning of the chapter, but that kind of stopped. I'll just go through my ranking of the books. There's 8 books following each of the siblings, and then there's an extra book which is like all epilogues together kind of thing. So the way the books are structured, first and foremost, let me talk to you about this. You have the story, you have the book, you know, you have the story in the book, and then you get an epilogue, standard obviously, but then you get the second epilogue. Some of my editions already had the second epilogue in it, others didn't, but that final book is the second epilogues years later. You also did get a really nice, it wasn't really an epilogue, I'd say more of a short novella about Violet, who's Lady Bridgerton. She's the mother of all these children, and I did really enjoy that one, but the final book is just epilogues about them years later in the future. So I'll go through my ranking first and I'll leave it on the screen. When I do this ranking, I'm just going to tell you it via their names rather than the names of the actual books. On the screen I'll have the names of the actual books and the characters, but when I just tell you, I'm just gonna say the characters' names. So coming in at number 9 we have Eloise, which breaks my heart because she was my favourite character in the Bridgerton TV series, but when I get on to the comparison and stuff, then that'll become clear. This is just the basic overarching ranking. Coming in at number 8 we have Daphne's story, and then coming in at number 7 we have Happily Ever After, which is the collection of epilogues and Violet's story. Then number 6 we have Hyacinth, then at number 5 we have Colin, then number 4 we have Gregory. Gregory, what a fantastic one, what a fantastic one. Then number 3 we have Benedict. Ooh, love it. Then number 2 we have Francesca. Then number 1 we have Anthony. Jeez, ow, I'm just remembering everything from the books and it was great. Okay, so that's my basic ranking, and I'll go into more detail later on about what I enjoyed, what I didn't enjoy, spoilers, why I've given it those rankings, but just in general that's my ranking. I will say, if you are going to read them, I would read them in order of publication, obviously, so 1, 2, you know, just because whilst the first book, The Duke and I, which is Daphne and Simon's book, you don't get any of the other characters when compared to the TV show. In Anthony, Benedict, Collins, everybody else's book, their stories overlap. So with Hyacinth and Gregory, even though Gregory is older, Hyacinth's story and her last name does come into Gregory's story. So if you read them out of order, you will potentially spoil yourself for the earlier books. So what I enjoyed, firstly, I liked how the women seemed to have their own power, which was quite refreshing. They could turn down spouses, they could turn down men that were trying to court them, they could say no. It was all generally kind of, it was a really interesting dynamic, because normally when you think about women getting married, I think the way it's kind of portrayed sometimes is that these women are often perceived to have absolutely no choice and things like that, whereas in this book series the women were a lot more independent and they were a lot more carefree, and just in generally also sometimes very sassy. I also enjoyed how, I've literally just said, but in the later books you did get all the previous siblings, because I think that is what let down the first book for me, and I think that's just because I watched the TV series first, is that I didn't get all my favourite characters. I didn't get Penelope, I didn't get Eloise. Anthony was in it but not really, like, you didn't get all the people that I thought made up the TV show, which was disappointing. However, the more you went on through the series, the more they all referenced, the more they all had a bigger part to play, and also especially the spouses of the siblings. For example, the woman that Anthony does end up marrying, she then helps out another character in one of the books and provides kind of a voice of reason, like a shoulder to lean on, you know, like kind of like a confidant, which I really appreciated. I thought that was really good. What I didn't enjoy, the language at times seemed a bit convoluted and it didn't really make any sense. I felt at points Julia Quinn was using some words that I had to kind of question whether that was the right way to use them, if that makes sense. I wish I had some examples now, but some words I would read and just think, I don't think that's in the right context, which is fine. It's not that big of a deal. It just kind of annoyed me a bit. And even though these are romance and things like that, some things seemed just a little bit too cliche, if you know what I mean. Some things just seemed a bit too cliche, that I kind of felt a bit like, no, I don't really think I can get behind that. Like, it was just, I don't know, it was just, sometimes it was just a bit too much. And also now I do appreciate the fact that some characters obviously got married. However, there wasn't a lot of consistency with the stories, which I suppose maybe added to the fact that they were all different. But in the books, if you look at them, when they get engaged and some of the ways that some of them gets engaged, it just seems a bit too far-fetched, and it seems a bit, pardon my language, but fucking stupid. Honestly, the way some of them actually get engaged, it's literally like, what the hell? How did that even happen? So, you know, it's a bit ridiculous. And also sometimes you had the marriage happen really early on, sometimes you had the engagement happen right at the end, which I suppose added to the story, but sometimes I felt that certain engagements were drawn out for so long that it kind of didn't make a lot of sense, and I kind of wanted the plot to hurry up a bit so we could get to them being married and then whatever was going to happen after they got married, kind of that kind of thing. But yeah, some of the ways some of them got engaged was just really fucking stupid, and I just can't get behind it, honestly. I just think about some of them and I'm like, what the hell? Okay, so now let's talk about the comparison to the TV show. First things first, I'm sure if you watch Bridgerton, or if you've heard people talk about Bridgerton, they've spoken about the music. The music is fantastic. The way that in the TV show they take modern songs like Thank You Next and Girls Like You and make it into this orchestral cover, it was great. It was great. I really, really loved it. I think it kind of added a nice element to it, and it also made it a lot more fun. I think normally when you see period dramas, they're all kind of drab and dark, but I think the music really added like a nice element to it. And I also loved how the TV show was so much in colour, it was so blossoming and things like that. I just thought it was really, really, really good, and I really enjoyed it. I also liked how it demonstrated marriage season and what it was, and the importance of balls and parties and dancing and what kind of staple they were in lives, and also the amount that men were called rakes or rogues and just slept around. The amount it was kind of emphasized, it's just, it kind of, there's a scene in the TV show where it's essentially just an orgy, and I thought it was quite a fun addition because stuff like that did happen. Like, sex was so underground that there were orgies, people slept with everybody, and I just thought it was a really kind of interesting dynamic to bring into the show, because it did happen. Like, just because these people wore massive dresses and women were expected to wait into marriage didn't mean that people didn't enjoy sex, and I just thought that was a really interesting dynamic to bring into it, and I just loved that aspect. I thought it was great. I thought it was great. Another thing that I did really love about the show was, I don't know if this is the right term or not, but kind of like colour blindness, because Simon is black, Lady Danbury is black, and they discuss how it's not made a massive, there's not a massive conversation about it in the show. They addressed why Simon, the Duke of Hastings, was black, and they didn't ignore his skin colour and just have more diverse characters, but they actually acknowledged that and kind of brought it in, which I thought was really interesting, and I did really enjoy it. And I know that for the second season they've also done a similar sort of thing with a few more characters, which I think is really, really good. Now we're going to talk about controversy. The first thing I want to touch on is racist comments in the book. I feel like this is quite key to talk about now because it contrasts with the TV show and the TV show's colour blindness, because in the books Julia Quinn does reference I think it's Colin, who likes to travel, and some brothers and people who have gone to Africa, and they refer to, there are quite a few comments then made about people they encountered, and about how oh, it might have been Michael, and about how one of them has come back with a tan and people aren't going to be happy that he has a tan, and just things like that just seemed a bit, it's not necessary at all, and I just didn't see the point of it. And when I read it, it kind of made me uncomfortable, which I didn't appreciate at all. I just thought it wasn't necessary for the books at all. Hello, so I've filmed and edited this video. I'm obviously coming in a bit later, like a week after I wanted this video to initially be up, but anyway, we just moved past that. I just have a little quick interjection, because along with the controversies and stuff that I've mentioned, I forgot something that I think is really key to mention as well, is the weight issue. So if that's something you don't want to discuss, then again, I'd go back to the original timestamp I put on this video for when the trigger warnings are over. If you've seen the show as well, then you know Penelope Featherington is portrayed as this bigger girl. She's portrayed in the book to be overweight and not good in yellow, I think it is. And this is obviously meant to be the comedic element. Penelope is meant to be the friend who pines after the more attractive man, but he's way out of her league, so she's never going to get him. And that's kind of how it's portrayed until we get to the 4th book with Penelope and Colin's story. I mean, it's even referenced in that book. It is a constant mention of how Penelope needs to lose weight, or how she has lost weight. And when she has lost weight, I think it's 2 stone. It's either 2 stone or 3 stone, but I'm sure it's 2 stone. It is constantly mentioned how now Penelope has lost 2 stone, and how that's miraculously made her more attractive, and how she's a lot better for losing 2 stone, and just the specifics of this 2 stone. And it made me so sad, because this constant thing about how she needs to lose 2 stone to get a man to notice her, or she just needs to lose 2 stone. It's the specific nature of the 2 stone that got me, but also this idea perpetuating that she needs to lose 2 stone, which I have a great issue with, and I just wanted to bring that up as well, because again, I don't really think that was appropriate either. It wasn't needed at all, and frankly, if Colin was a gentleman, he would have loved her whatever size she was. So I just wanted to put that in. Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to talk about the male rape, so I will leave a timestamp for when I've stopped talking about that, or when we're on to the next section, which is the premise of the premise of the book, so I'll leave that on the screen. Okay, so the book and the TV show both handle this differently. I know there's been a lot more debate about whether in the TV show it is male rape or it is not. What essentially happens is, this is actually gonna be spoiler, so if you don't want to be spoiled, then I would again go to the timestamp that I put on the screen. But in the TV show, it's portrayed as Daphne climbing on top of Simon. Would I say climbing on top of Simon? She basically gets on top of Simon and has sex with him, and then he obviously orgasms inside her, and she does this as a point to prove that he can have children, he just doesn't want to, which I think is quite interesting. Because, no, interesting is the wrong word. I think it's quite, I mean, a man can still orgasm inside a woman. It doesn't mean he can or cannot have children. That into its own is a separate conversation. But there's been a lot of controversy and debate with the film about whether it is male rape or not. I'm not going to discuss the TV show for this bit, but I just wanted to make you aware that it is raised in the TV show. However, the book, it clearly is male rape. There is no doubt about it. Simon comes home and he is so drunk I mean lying on the floor drunk, doesn't realise what's going on drunk completely. Julia Quinn makes a point so many times of saying that describing how much Simon is drunk. Unbelievably so. To the point where you're like, we get it. He's pissed. He then lies on his bed and Daphne takes advantage. Then there are so many points in this scene where Simon actively says, no, don't, stop, and Daphne doesn't. There is also a line where Daphne says that something like she knows it's wrong but she's going to continue anyway, and also that she feels she has a new sense of power and things like that, which is completely abhorrent. It's not okay, and it's just not alright, and it's just not. It was quite, it was beyond uncomfortable to read. I didn't want to read it. It was just not at all what I envisioned Bridgerton to be. And my other issue with this is that, again, so after that whole situation, after that whole scene, it's kind of glossed over. Like, they argue, and it's similar in the TV show as well. They argue and then they all just kind of move on, and nobody actually addresses what Daphne did. And I feel like, especially for the TV show, that could have been a great point to have a conversation about consent, male rape, and yet it wasn't taken advantage of in both the book and the TV show, which I think was a great shame. I think they really could have addressed something there, and they just decided not to. But I just wanted to make people aware of it, because I know the TV show has had the debate. In the book, there's no debate. You can't debate that. It's absolutely ridiculous. Let's talk about the premise of the books. I'm going to give you now just essentially the premise of the books. They're not going to include spoilers. They're just going to be like 1 or 2 lines each for the books, and then we're going to go into the spoilers, but I will give you warning. Okay, so I do also have my notes here, which is why I keep on looking this way. The first book is The Duke and I. This is obviously set between, I say obviously, like people have seen the TV show. This is set between Simon and Daphne. Simon is sick of mothers pestering him about getting married and setting him up with their daughters, and Daphne is, in the book, she's kind of portrayed as a friend to all the guys, so much so that it's her 3rd marriage season and nobody wants her. Like, everybody just views her as a friend. And so Simon and Daphne band together to make Daphne more desirable, essentially, because the idea is that if another man sees the Duke of Hastings courting this woman, then they will want her as well, to essentially get her some proposals. And obviously you can kind of guess what happens. Book 2 is The Viscount Who Loved Me, and this follows Anthony. Anthony? What a man, what a man. He's the eldest brother, and this is set a year later than The Duke and I, and Anthony just decides he's going to get married. So he starts looking at women, essentially, and he finds this one woman, Edwina, and he thinks, oh yes, I'm going to marry her. But in order to marry Edwina, he needs the approval of Edwina's older sister. And surprise, surprise, what happens? Suddenly he finds he's having dreams about her, and he can't get the older sister out of his head. I think you can guess what happened there. Next, we've got an offer from a gentleman. This is Benedict's story, and Benedict is at a masquerade ball and he falls in love with a woman and he doesn't know her name. What happens when the clock strikes midnight? She runs away and all he's left with is her glove. Fast forward years later, and he finds her, but he doesn't realise it's her. Next, there's Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. If you've read the series, you would know Colin and Penelope. Oh, so cute, so cute. This essentially follows Colin realising how much Penelope is amazing. And then we have To Sir Philip with Love, and this is probably the most disappointing book I've read all year. And this is Eloise's story where she decides, you know what, maybe I will marry, maybe I will. And so she writes a letter to this man, Sir Philip, and then she ends up visiting him and his 2 children. It's weird, it's weird. Then the 6th book is When He Was Wicked. This is set around Francesca, who is actually married. She's married to John, and John dies randomly. It's not really said how he dies. It's kind of mentioned he has a headache, and that's about it. And then years pass, and I can't remember already. Is it his cousin or his brother? I think it's his cousin. And Michael, he is in love with Francesca, but he can't have her, and they kind of both still coming to terms with the loss of John. I think that's quite an interesting dynamic in that book. Then number 7, we have It's in His Kiss. This is Hyacinth's story, and she actually embarks on this journey because Lady Danbury has requisitioned her help for, I think it's her grandson, to translate a diary that's in Italian for him. And so they spend more time together. It's actually really interesting because it's finding out who the man, I think his name's Gareth, I can't remember his last name, Gareth St. Clair, finding out who his actual father is. When you read the start of the book, it's explicitly clear that he's not actually his father's son, and his father is, he really struggles with it, and so they think it's clear in this diary. And so it's kind of like a mystery thing as well, which I think is really, really interesting. Then for number 8, you have Gregory's story, On the Way to the Wedding. Oh my god. This opens up with a man stopping a wedding. It's great. And so Gregory finds somebody who he wants to marry, but then he realizes, oh, he doesn't actually want to marry her, he wants to marry this other woman, but this other woman is engaged to be married. So much so, he tries to stop the wedding. It's great. I love it so much. And then you have Happily Ever After, which is all the second epilogues of those stories years later, essentially. And then also a novella which follows Lady Bridgerton, or Violet, and it follows kind of her story of how she met Lord Bridgerton and then how they fell in love, got married, had kids, such and such. And I just think it's really, I really love that specific novella in the Happily Ever After books. I wasn't a massive fan of the other stories. I kind of just felt that they didn't really need to be second epilogues. I thought the epilogue kind of left it off where it was at quite a good point, but the novella with Violet I thought was just so, it was really heartbreaking, but it was really nice to read. So now let's go into the spoilers and my general thoughts. Okay, so this is now where I'm just going to discuss my general feelings and things I liked, things I didn't like. I don't think it's going to be that a coherent section. I'll leave timestamps explicitly for when I talk about which book in the description box below. I feel like that would be most helpful if you just want spoilers for a specific book, or you just read a book and you want to hear my thoughts on it. I don't know. that's basically my plan. I'm sorry if it's not that coherent, but you know, in general. So let's start with the Duke and I. Daphne and Simon, what a couple. I didn't like this book. I think I didn't like it so much so because I watched the series and I had all the other characters. Daphne and Simon weren't my favourite couple anyway of the TV series. Every time they came onto the screen later on, when it was all the hullabaloo about how you couldn't have kids, I was just kind of like, no, excuse me, can we get back to Eloise? Can we get back to Penelope, please? I want more of them, you know? And it just really annoyed me how everything, as I've said before, how everything was just kind of glossed over it, and I just didn't really like it at all, to be honest. There was obviously a book I disliked more, but I just thought that was a bit annoying. I did appreciate though how much more quick-witted Daphne was in the books. In the TV series, she's kind of presented as a bit of meek, like she's not really able to really like converse with other people, and she's just a bit meh. However, in the book, she's a lot smarter, she's a lot funnier, so I much preferred that. Book 2, The Viscount Who Loved Me, Anthony and Kate. Oh my god. Okay, so I wasn't enamored with this book until halfway through. The way that you see Anthony's love for Kate growing deeper and deeper, or his appreciation for her, when suddenly he's like, oh, you know, I can smell her all the time, like I think about her all the time. And I thought it was really interesting when I don't know if I just misinterpreted this, but in the book when it talks about how he had the most erotic dream he's ever had, but it just seemed that they were laying together and they didn't actually do anything. I was a bit confused how that's the most erotic dream he's ever had. But I thought it was really, really cute. I loved how when Kate was really scared of the thunder, he comforted her. I thought that was really, really sweet, and spoke to her and stuff about his father. I just thought that was the cutest thing ever. The only thing that got me was the stupid way they got engaged. She got stung by a bee on like a collarbone or something, like here, and then he decided to suck the venom out. Obviously, because his father was killed by a bee, I'm assuming his dad was probably allergic to bees, and that's the whole story of that. But the fact that he then tried to suck the venom out, and so obviously was like, must have looked a bit dodgy, and then that's how they got engaged, was a bit weird. And then when he decided, or when he said that he couldn't love her, even though his thoughts clearly showed that he did, I thought that was also a bit stupid. But when they had the argument and she kind of went to see her sister and the carriage fell over, I was literally like, what the fuck? Like, I thought Julia Quinn was gonna kill her off. I honestly thought she was gonna kill her off, and I had to. This is the first time I've ever done this. I had to move pages ahead to just see if she died because I wouldn't have been able to handle it if she died. And so it was a lot for me, honestly, that book. And next, An Offer from a Gentleman. So this is Benedict and Sophie's story. I wasn't sure about the first bit of the masquerade and the Cinderella kind of aspect. I thought it seemed a bit cheesy and stupid, and I didn't really go with it and stuff. It just seemed a bit meh. However, when Sophie was nursing Benedict back to health in that little cottage and she would read to him, I just thought that was so sweet, and it was just really nice. I could have done with more of that. I would have preferred if they were there for a bit longer and they could have had more in-depth conversations and stuff, and maybe if they'd just fallen in love that way without the masquerade, and then at the end, obviously when Sophie's been arrested, then it would have come out that the stepmother is obviously a psychotic bitch. I would have preferred that. I don't think we needed the masquerade element. I think I was fine with him just falling in love with Sophie as she was. I didn't think we needed that before bit. It just seemed a bit stupid and unnecessary, and I wasn't a massive fan. It just seemed a bit like, I don't know, I just wasn't a fan of that. But aside from that, I did really love when they were just together. I thought that was a really nice element. Next, number 4, we have romancing Mr. Bridgerton. This is obviously Colin and Penelope's story. I thought it was sweet. I really liked how they I liked the little things where it described how Colin actually realised the colour of Penelope's eyes and how beautiful she was, and it kind of went through that stage and recognition, and then he realised that no, he did want to be with her. I did think that was really sweet. Spoiler for finding out who Lady Whistledown is, so click off again if you don't want to hear this. I did not like how Colin reacted to Penelope being Lady Whistledown. I thought he was unnecessarily angry, and it just really pissed me off. I didn't think he needed to act that way. I didn't think he needed to act that way. I didn't think he needed to be so aggressive. But then at the end, he's okay with it. And then I didn't think he understood why Penelope was so passionate about Lady Whistledown. And I think the Colin that is portrayed as falling in love with Penelope, I would have thought he would have been a lot more understanding. So it's kind of like those two characters didn't entirely match. But also the fact that they almost had sex in a carriage. Like, number 5, To Sir Philip with Love. Honestly, this book pissed me off. I was so looking forward to this one. It's Eloise's story. I wanted to know why she suddenly wanted to get married. What changed in her mind about getting married. And it just seemed that it wasn't Eloise at all. It wasn't even the Eloise who was in the previous books. So, for example, the Eloise in Anthony's book and in Colin and Penelope's book is a sassy young woman. She's funny, she's sassy, refusing to get married, and it's like all that is forgotten for this book, and it just kind of annoyed me. And so many things seemed so out of character for that Eloise that, alright, to a certain extent I may have got from the TV show, which I suppose is where the issues come in, but she just ran off to visit Sir Philip, didn't let anybody know she was going, and it just seemed a bit meh. And then all of a sudden she's marrying him. Like, it just seemed very, I don't know. And also the sex in this book made me uncomfortable. Like, obviously there was a weird conversation where Sir Philip was like, I haven't had sex in like 8 years since the twins were born. So obviously his wife refused to have sex with him. And then Eloise is like, oh my god, he abstained. He abstained for so long. And then that's like the trigger for why she decides to marry him. And then they have sex, and it just made me so uncomfortable, because if you are a virgin, most likely it does hurt. And the fact that in this scene Philip is described as not being able to control himself, he just like, and Eloise was like, I don't care, it's fine. No, I'm sorry, that would have hurt like a bitch. You don't do that. And it really rubbed me the wrong way, you know. And suddenly then Eloise is just this fan of rough sex. It just made me uncomfortable. I did not like it at all. Did not like it at all. Number 6, When He Was Wicked, probably the steamiest book in the series. That's how I'm going to describe this. So much shit goes down, so much dirty talk, so much referencing to oral sex, so much just general sex. It's crazy. It's wow, it's a lot. However, Michael in this is an absolute dream, you know. He really loves Francesca, and I just feel like I completely understood that Francesca was with John, and then they were all in mourning and Michael ran away. That I thought was really well done. And then when Michael came back, that obviously there's a bit of tension between them, because Francesca blamed Michael for obviously running away when John passed away. Like, he wasn't there to help her or support her either, which I completely get. And then all of a sudden they're having sex a lot, and Michael's asking Francesca to marry him, and Francesca keeps on refusing, but then she keeps on having sex with him. And there's just not a lot of communication about the fact that I don't think Francesca wants to betray John in a way. It's never really explicitly mentioned and stuff, and I just think it's all very... There are certain things when it's a bit like, why are you not just talking to each other? Why can't you just communicate that, you know? You can have sex like bloody rabbits, but you can't just talk to each other. However, it was a good book. Next, It's in His Kiss. I wasn't fussed, honestly, with this one about the Hyacinth Gareth romance. I couldn't care less about that. What I wanted was the diary and finding out who Gareth's father actually was. I loved that. That was the best bit of this book. It really, really was well done. I really enjoyed it. It was just really, really good. I really, really enjoyed that bit. I don't know if you can tell. It was quite refreshing, I think, from the previous books where they'd all kind of had different romances, but this one really added an air of mystery to it, and it really kind of blew the other ones away in the sense of kind of like the plot and stuff. It really just changed the whole dynamic of the series. The only reason why it's not higher in my ranking was because I just really did not care for Hyacinth and Gareth's romance. I wasn't bothered at all. I didn't care about it. Every time they were kind of talking and stuff, I was just like, can we get back to the diary please? It was just a bit, just not a fan, honestly. And I wish we had more of the diary. I would have maybe liked alternate chapters of what was actually happening years before. I think that would have really made the book. But finding out his uncle is his dad, oh my god, wow. I thought that was really, really clever, because it added to the air of suspicion when Gareth was told by his dad that his dad isn't his actual real dad, and he was like, but we look alike, like how do I look like you and you're not my dad? And then obviously his uncle is his father. I thought it was really, really good. I really enjoyed that. Next we have On the Way to the Wedding. Let me tell you, I kind of like how Julia Quinn took the plot of kind of Anthony's book but switched it around. So Anthony obviously wanted to marry Edwina initially, and then he realised he was in love with Kate. But with this, Gregory wanted to marry Hermione, I think it was, because he was like, oh, she's beautiful, I'm gonna marry her. And then he just suddenly realised how amazing Lucy was, and then it kind of went like that. I liked that, but I also then liked how it then descended into this oh no, Lucy has to marry this man who actually likes other men, which everybody knew, and yet they were like, oh come on now. I thought that was really, really interesting, and how they kind of like uncovered it. And still, I really respected how Lucy still went through with the marriage and was prepared to sacrifice her own happiness and her own love for, you know, the sake of her father's reputation and stuff. The only thing that I found so uncomfortable, and I really wish it would have been addressed, there was a point in the book where Lucy confronts her uncle because she's like, he likes men, like how are we gonna have kids, how is this even gonna work? And her uncle, obviously we know that her uncle is now a bastard, and her uncle says, well, if he can't, then I'm sure his father can, implying that Lucy will have to sleep with them both to be able to have kids, like just using her body as a vessel. And I just, it made me so uncomfortable, and it honestly made me want to cry, because it was just a really hard scene to read, I think, but it wasn't addressed further, and I really, really was annoyed by that, how it wasn't addressed. And obviously they like addressed that her uncle was a bastard and was disgusting and gross, but that was it. Nothing else really, like, it got me, honestly. It just got me a bit, and it was never really resolved. But then I did like how the person who Lucy married, I can't remember his name, clearly he's very forgettable. I like how he was like, no, we can get an annulment, I don't want to be in this marriage either. I liked that. And then Lucy married Gregory. I thought that was really, really nice. I really enjoyed that. Moving on to the Happily Ever After book. First and foremost, Violet's book. I got really emotional at that one. I think especially because we know he dies, but you see the emotion and the love between Violet and her husband. It was just really, it was such a lovely little novella. The other ones though, I don't think were essential. I was really happy with the way every other book ended with the epilogue. We didn't need more. I didn't care if Simon read the letters from his father or not. I didn't think it mattered. I thought the point of the first book was that Simon didn't need to read them. I appreciated how he didn't read them, because it showed that his father wasn't necessarily a focal point in his life. We didn't need that reassessment or a reinvigoration of, does he need to read the letters? I also thought some of them were a bit lackluster, like I can't tell you what happened in half of them. Like, also, I want to discuss how on the one for Gregory and Lucy, why the fuck Lucy started hemorrhaging, started having a hemorrhage after her child, and then it was thought she might die. What was the necessity of that? I don't think we needed it. It just wasn't an all-around necessary book. Honestly, I wasn't happy at all with it. Ridiculous. They're my views. I hope they were coherent. I feel like it was a bit wish-washy at the end, because I just kind of said what I wanted to say about the books, or the conversation I've been holding in. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. Please subscribe if you would like. If there are any other series you'd like me to read and document my thoughts and feelings, please let me know. If you have any questions, I'll try and answer them. And yes, I'm kind of thinking when season 2 of Bridgerton comes out, I will do like a react to it whilst watching it, if you would like. But for now, that is it. I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.